we're just going to go into some detail on how your gap sensor actually controls where your machine stops. So right now we have the gap sensor set up about 1/2 centimetre past the leading edge of a label. These labels are front and back on the roll, however they are actually the same length. So it doesn't matter where we place that back on which label. If you had labels which were front and back and they were actually different lengths, it's going to matter a lot. So in that case, what you need to make sure, I can see I have a front label here and I've actually got a back label just coming through the peel plate here. So I need to make sure that the gap sensor is sitting on the next back label. So what I'm going to do here is just slide it off the bar, move this bar a bit further up, rotate it round. As I'm putting this back on the bar, I'm gently lifting the star wheel over the label. I'm not actually smashing it into the side of the label. Don't recommend doing that. Gently lifting it, screwing everything back into place. Now I'm sitting about 1/2 centimetre back on a back label. These are front and back labels as mentioned. There's a back label coming out, a front label next, another back label. So in this case, when I apply 2, just caught 2 labels there, the next label coming out is still a back label. That's the sequence you're going to need to use if your front and back labels are different lengths. If you have a single label, it doesn't matter on which label you place the gap sensor. So I'm just switching to single label mode. And now I just need to flip this around again. And again, lifting that star wheel, bringing it to about 1/2 centimetre, tightening it off, and I'm just going to run a single label. Again, another single, and you can see I'm getting 1 label at a time and the same amount is coming out of this peel plate. Now, going into a bit of detail about what's happening here at this peel plate. Some people see this amount of label, which we would call probably a little bit too much. You've got about 4 millimetres sticking out there. What can happen in this case, if you have a bottle on, after it applies your first set of labels or your first label, it can actually catch. It can get stuck to this. It's too much label coming out. What we see a lot happening is that people will lift up this lever on the side here. Whoops. They'll lift it up and just pull the labels back like this. Now the gap sensor actually controls how your labels are applied. So doing that is only going to work for 1 label and you'll see what happens. Again, the same amount of label, too much label coming out. So the permanent fix for this is to actually move the gap sensor. I have too much label coming out. So what I need to do is to actually move it further away. So I reckon I've got about 3 millimetres too much coming out. So I'm going to move the gap sensor back towards the roll of labels by about 3 millimetres. Now I'm going to run a label and we'll see how much is coming through. So there's far less label coming through now. We're looking at about 1 millimetre of label, which is a good amount of label to be coming through. And you'll see as I continue to run off the labels, we're getting the same amount of label coming through. Now I can go ahead and actually have even less than that. In some cases, if you're getting a fold on the leading edge, for example, we sometimes recommend hiding the label, so you're tucking it just beneath here. So in that case, I'm just going to move back another 2 millimetres, and you'll see I'm sitting quite far back now. I'm beyond 5 millimetres on this label, but in this case, it's what I want to do. I want to have no label showing. So the label has vanished. And again, no matter how many labels I run off, it'll continue to be hidden. Now, if I want to bring that label back, or if I need more label for some reason, bring the gap sensor closer towards you. So every label coming out from now is going to give me that much amount of label. For me, personally, for most applications, I prefer to have a couple of millimetres showing, so I'm just going to move it back. I'm going to get rid of some of that excess label. That's a pretty good place. You could go even a tiny bit further than that. And that is where I like to see it.